Hello everybody, my name is Duncan Shaw. I work at University of Manchester and I'm going to provide you an introduction to the National Consortium for Societal Resilience, a venture that Ben Axelson from Thames Valley LRF and myself have been developing over the last few months. The consortium is formed of a whole range of members, local resilience partnerships and sector partners. In terms of resilience partnerships, we have England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales represented, Crown dependencies of Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man. We cover most of the UK and really what that allows us to do is bring together a whole range of different experiences from rural and urban areas, from areas of different geographies, of different political and structural forms, bring them all together and think about what whole of society resilience means by using all of the information that's available from these resilience partnerships. We also have a range of sector partners involved. They cover the business sector, so large businesses and small businesses. The voluntary sector, again, national organisations, as well as some local or hyper-local organisations. Academic sector and government. Government providing both national government voices, but also from different departments and from across different local government organisations. So both with the resilience partners and the sector partners, we're able to cover quite a lot of the resilience landscape. We have 62 partners involved, all coming together to talk about societal resilience and whole society resilience. So a little bit more about the consortium. We have a website, the URL is at the top of this slide, but in terms of the national in the name, the national refers to local levels working both with national partners and down to hyper-local, that whole range of different partnership working that is needed. But our focus within NCSR is very much about local level, about the activities that need to be done at local level, where risk exists, where vulnerabilities exist, and where communities and businesses operate. The consortium is a collaborative working group. We're here to be doing things, to be developing frameworks, to be talking and identifying how work gets done, and then supporting the how, supporting implementation. Focusing on societal resilience, on whole of society resilience in this term that was floated in integrated review. The UK reflects to our work across the four nations, and the plus reflects to the Crown dependencies and the involvement of other partners. And so that combination provides the NCSR plus. So why have we decided now to develop this consortium? The integrated review was published about February 2021 and talked about the need to renew the work around resilience and making that a national endeavour. The consortium very much takes that on board, and hence our national coverage. We're very interested in the work in the integrated review around establishing a whole of society approach, thinking about how individuals, businesses and organisations can all play a meaningful role in building resilience. We look at one of the other priority areas within the integrated review around developing capabilities. So developing the people, the skills and the equipment, and thinking about how all of this can be brought to bear around whole of society resilience. And the consortium is very much focused on that notion of building capabilities, individuals, businesses and organisations. Because of that integrated review, we held a first meeting of the consortium. It wasn't a consortium at that point, just a first meeting really. And we thought we would bring together five LRFs to talk about the implications of the integrated review. In that first meeting, we had about 70 people covering all of England, because we had only involved England at that point. And in that conversation, we realised that there were many places that were inspiring. You know, they had engagement with voluntary organisations, with volunteers, with community groups that were just extraordinary. There were places that inspired us on business continuity and how they engaged with local and national businesses, involved them in resilience. There were places that had processes set up for whether it was donations management or spontaneous volunteers that we knew we could learn from. And many places had lots of resources that they were willing and able to share to inspire other people and other places and other organisations as to how they do it. But in that first meeting, we recognised as well that there were lots of places that were aspiring to some of that good practice. They loved the idea of community resilience, but found it hard to do. And over the last decade, have, in one case, one LRF had dipped their toe in the water, but had not made meaningful progress on enhancing the resilience of society. But they wanted to. And so the consortium is very much a group of people who want to do more on societal resilience, who aspire to even greater things, no matter where they are on the journey of already being fully competent or still aspiring to that. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the vision and objectives of the consortium. So the vision is to enhance UK plus whole of society approach to resilience. This is what brings together the consortium members. And we're interested in how do we support individuals who are living at home, who belong to a household, how do we support them to build their own personal or household resilience? How do we support community groups to support the resilience of their communities, of their areas, of the people that they represent? How do we support businesses, profit-making organisations that employ staff? How do we support them and their staff to become more resilient? And how do we support other organisations, the voluntary sector, local government, organisations in social partnerships? How do we support them to play a meaningful role in building the resilience of their places, of their society, of the people in those areas? This is the vision that unites the consortium, is to pursue this and to make a meaningful impact on improving whole of society resilience. So in terms of the objectives, I'm going to talk about 4 objectives. The first being to develop a supportive national ecosystem, underpinned with shared language, shared concepts, and shared principles that unite the members of the consortium and forms a basis on which we can strengthen relationships with each other, that we can share information, we can engage in similar activities because we're part of this ecosystem and we're able to support each other. And the second objective, to learn together. We recognise there's a lot of good practice being done within the UK, but a lot of good practice being done outside. So first we'll be looking at the international experiences to bring that different learning into the UK of how other people have built whole of society resilience. Learning together really aims to identify translatable lessons that we can learn and start to think about how we can implement them in our local areas. The third objective, to develop nationally consistent approaches, is one that recognises that these approaches are implemented locally, they're translated locally, but there is an element to which nationally consistent might be helpful. So we're still exploring what this means, but we recognise that one of the reasons that it's been difficult to translate good practice from one area into another area is because the foundations are different. So this objective is to establish and identify what foundations are to build whole of society resilience and to make that successful, and then work with local areas to understand how that can be translated into their own context in a sympathetic way. Then the fourth objective is to share and to implement and to evaluate. So it's not just about creating or identifying those foundations, it's about implementing them, and about the consortium supporting implementation through creating materials, creating resources that supports implementation, and recognising that we also need to assess what the impact of that implementation is on changing confidence, on changing experiences, and on changing the way in which local areas are implementing their whole of society resilience. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the design of the consortium. I'm going to start with the definition of resilience. This is a definition that has been designed by the consortium. But the definition for whole of society resilience is the capability created by local systems that help people and places to adapt and advance in a changing environment. There's lots of information that sits behind each of these words, but I'd like just to pick up on the first word, capability, because the consortium, we think, is all about developing different capabilities to support whole of society resilience. So what we'll be doing is looking at what are the capabilities that society can have that helps us to understand risk, pinpoint vulnerability, enhance preparedness through leveraging the agency of societal groups and of communities and of organisations, but building these capabilities. For example, spontaneous volunteers capability, business continuity, and trying to build capabilities that help to support societal resilience. So this is the definition that we have of, that we use with resilience partners. We have another definition that we would use with community groups, a bit simpler, and really focusing and speaking to what it is that they can do. So they can create, before, during and after disruption, a capability that involves everyone who wishes, and supports those people who are in need. So you could see here that community groups, we need to have a different language to talk to them about community resilience. We understand that. And the consortium is about trying to talk to two audiences, talk to local resilience partners and sector partners who may prefer a different type of language, but then understanding how do we talk with community groups? How do we work with them very closely? How do we work with businesses and organisations? And giving the materials to be able to do that quite comfortably. Some of the general principles that sit below and underpin NCSR is aligning around that shared meaning of whole society resilience and then pursuing that together by exploiting what unites us, exploiting our synergies, so that we can work collaboratively together. We recognise that this is quite an ambitious issue. It's an issue that has been challenging the UK for decades as to how do we implement community resilience. So we know that we're going to have to take some short-term and some longer-term objectives and work to them. But this is not an issue that we're going to resolve within 12 months. We know that everybody's busy. This is another task to add to a busy diary, and so the University of Manchester is providing research capacity and support around that so that people can be efficient and can work together on this. The initial work and research that we'll be doing is around developing a nationally consistent foundations on which to build whole of society resilience. We think that's the place to start. Again, also building that ecosystem that we've been talking about. So other principles are around addressing important resource gaps. We're finding out what those gaps are by a survey that we've just completed, and we'll be seeking to address those gaps by producing materials and collateral under a neutral branding so that any partner can use those materials should they wish. We'll be developing and accumulating good practices. So bringing those good practices together. We recognise that there are so many good practices out there. We know that not one size fits all, so not one good practice will be able to be translated to every place. So we'll be identifying a range of good practices, but a small range. We'll be looking at developing and enhancing the national ecosystem that we're developing so that the voice of communities, the voice of our community can be heard in each of our local areas. And we must analyse the impact of our effect and impact of our effort, because that's the way that we can show that we're having an impact and that there is value of the consortium working together in this way. We need, however, to remember that the consortium is not everybody, it's not the whole of society. So we need to disseminate our learning to everyone through a whole range of different ways and means, and we'll be doing that and doing more of that. So in terms of some of the activities that we're running, we've conducted an initial baseline survey that aims to calibrate where partners are at. It aims to identify what have been the needs of partners and what offerings partners can bring into the consortium. Really just trying to provide a basis on which we can evaluate any changes the consortium makes, whether it's changes in confidence or in performance. We've been running webinars, international webinars involving a range of countries, and then we'll start running webinars within the UK, bringing together good practices and good examples of what's been going on in those different places. We're conducting a series of case studies on behalf of the National Preparedness Commission. These bring together examples of where whole of society approaches have been used within COVID-19 and have been particularly successful. And all of these webinars, case studies are helping us to form and identify what those components of whole of society resilience is. So identifying the components, pinpointing enablers in order to design the foundations for whole of society resilience is a key activity. And then, where appropriate, working with areas, organisations that want to start doing things differently and start implementing those foundations. We're setting up project teams, one around training needs analysis, another around strategic communications, and they'll be aiming to do work that again helps and brings information into developing those foundations. You're able to follow us online. The website is on the board. We have LinkedIn groups. On those LinkedIn groups, we share information of forthcoming events and the videos of those events. The website contains information about the consortium, who are the partners, and the sorts of work that we're doing, objectives and so on. So on behalf of the National Consortium, thank you for watching this. Thanks for having an interest in the work that we're doing. If you have questions, if you have any points that you'd like to feed into the consortium, then please do reach out to your local resilience partnership. It's likely that they'll be part of the consortium and a member, and they can bring your interests both to their resilience partnership as well as to the consortium. On behalf of Ben and myself, thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful.